1 nickel. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. I'm in the little town in South Carolina. It's a bustling town called Lake City, South Carolina. Lake City is a town of about 7,000 people, but it is a bustling little town. There used to be an old man that would sit on a knee wall right along the main street, and I'll show you him in just a second. And he had a seat on the knee wall. He was an old man. I read the story. The story I read is from 1964, and he was an old man then. Okay, and he would sit there and he would give you good luck. Now, how's that work? He had a rabbit's foot, and he'd let you rub his rabbit's foot for a nickel. He would tell stories and jokes and joke around with some of the other older men there. There used to be a little knee wall that went right along in here. A little knee wall is just a little 1 foot or 2 foot wall, and that's where he would sit and dispense his wisdom and his luck. Just a reminder, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe. This is one of those towns where a railroad goes straight through the middle of it, and that's how Lake City even became a town, was because of the railroad and its very thriving tobacco market. And he would sit on that knee wall across the street from the railroad track and dispense his wisdom, his humor, and his good luck. There was a lady named Darla Moore who come from this town, and she moved up to New York City and became very, very wealthy. But she did not forget where she came from, and she moved back to Lake City and has been a huge benefactor to the city, trying to help it improve, paying for things. Well, her and a friend of hers was talking about old times when they started remembering Mr. Huey Cooper. And Mrs. Moore, Darla Moore, decided that she would commission a statue of this old man who dispensed wisdom, laughter, and a nickel's worth of luck. Mr. Huey Cooper was born just after the Civil War, around 1871. In 1964, when they wrote this article about him, he was already an old man then, very old. And the people, they really didn't know how old he was, and he wasn't sure himself. He had to go back through paperwork to figure out how old he was. And in the article, they interviewed someone, and he said, well, I've been living in this town 40 years, and he was here when I got here doing the same thing. So that would have backed him up to about 1920 something, 24 maybe. Now, again, he was born just after the Civil War. He died in 1976. That's right. He lived to be 105 years old. Now, the story of Mr. Cooper goes like this. I couldn't find a real story, but that's not all. I tried looking up census reports, and there's another Huey Cooper who's a few years older, and I found his stuff, but not this Mr. Cooper stuff. I know that he come from a town just outside of this area, in another county, but not too far away. And according to the newspaper article, he would sit here and do his thing, and he had a little house he lived in on someone's property, and then she sold the property and they decided to build a grocery store there. So he was talking to the police chief about this, and the police decided they would build him a little house, and they did. They built him a little house behind the police station. They had plumbing, electricity. It was a little place, but it had creature comforts, you know. And this is where he would go in the summertime. This is where he would stay at. This is where he would rest at night. Now, in the wintertime, when it got too cold, he would actually go to the police station and just let himself in one of the cells. That reminds me of a character from the Andy Griffith show, Mayberry. What was his name? Leave a comment. Maybe you can remind me. You know, you get old, your brain cells. You don't even want to go there. The neat thing about this statue is they actually put a little hole in the pocket so that you can drop a nickel in there and get you a nickel's worth of luck. Now, you know, inflation and everything probably needs to be 3 or 4 silver dollars nowadays. But, you know, keeping with tradition, I put my nickel in there. Mr. Huey Cooper, 1871 to 1976, a grand story of a man who had little account to nothing, that lived large in the memories of the people in this little town of Lake City.